I never meant for anyone to find out about it. Even now, when I close my eyes and replay how it all started, it still feels like one small decision somehow opened a door I didn't even know existed in me. It began on a rainy Thursday, the kind where the sky feels heavy and even your thoughts sound softer. I had just lost my part-time job at the cafe, and I remember sitting on my bed staring at the rejection email, feeling like life was nudging me off a cliff. Rent was coming up, and my savings were almost gone. That's when I saw the message from Clara. She was a family friend, more like the cool aunt everyone secretly admired. She worked for a high-end event planning service, and she always joked about how she could find jobs in places people never looked. "I might have something," she wrote, "but don't freak out when I tell you the details." I didn't care what it was. I just needed something. Anything. She sent me the address to a townhouse 2 streets away. I remember walking there with the rain tapping my umbrella, heart pounding in my throat without knowing why. Clara opened the door with that playful smile she always had. "Before I tell you the role," she said, "promise me you'll keep an open mind. And more importantly, promise you'll trust me." I nodded, though my stomach tightened. She led me inside. The house smelled like vanilla and wood polish, and everything looked perfectly arranged, like a place made for quiet secrets. She gestured toward a clothing rack covered with a black garment bag. "This is the uniform," she said. I didn't know what I was expecting, maybe a waiter's vest or security jacket, but when she unzipped it, my breath got stuck. It was a French-made outfit. Not the flashy costume kind, but an elegant, high-quality version, with crisp black fabric, soft white lace, and an apron tied with long ribbons. The kind you'd see in old European mansions. "So, you want me to wear that?" I said, trying to laugh, but it came out shaky. She nodded gently. "The client wants a themed service for a private gathering. And they specifically asked for staff who could blend into a very curated atmosphere. You'd be masked. Fully anonymous. They won't know your name, your face, nothing. But, it's a maid uniform," I whispered, looking at my reflection in the glass cabinet behind her. She stepped closer, her voice soft. "I'm not asking you to become something you're not. I'm asking you to take a job. And if you're wondering why me, it's because you have this grace you never notice. The way you move. The calmness. It fits the aesthetic." I should have refused. I really should have. But I saw the sincerity in her eyes, the kind that made you feel safe even when you weren't sure you should be. "You don't have to say yes," she said when I didn't answer. "But I think you might surprise yourself." I touched the fabric. It felt unreal between my fingers, smooth, lightweight, delicate. Something about it stirred a feeling I didn't understand, a tug deep inside my chest, like a forgotten part of me quietly waking up. "It's just one night?" I asked. She hesitated for a moment too long. "One night to start," she said softly. "But I want you to try it on first. Only if you're comfortable." I didn't know what possessed me, but I nodded. Maybe desperation. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something I'd buried so deep I didn't recognize it. She handed me a pair of black stockings, a petticoat, and the dress. My hands trembled as I took them, not because I was afraid, but because I suddenly realized how much I cared about how this might feel. I changed in the guest room. I told myself it was just a job, that I needed rent money, that nothing about this was personal. But the moment I slipped into the stockings, a strange calm washed over me, like I was stepping into a story I wasn't supposed to read but somehow belonged to. When I fastened the dress and tied the apron, I stared at my reflection, rainwater still in my hair, cheeks flushed, eyes confused. I didn't look ridiculous. I looked different. Softer. Like someone learning a truth too slowly to deny. Clara knocked gently. "Can I come in?" I opened the door, expecting her to laugh or tease. Instead, she froze. Then her smile grew warm, almost proud. "I knew it," she whispered. "You look like you've been carrying this inside you longer than you realize." My throat tightened. I didn't know what she meant, or why her words hit so hard. But I felt something shift. Quietly. Irrevocably. And for the first time in years. I didn't feel like I was pretending to be someone. I felt like I was finally meeting someone. Clara didn't rush me. She didn't even step closer. She just stood there in the doorway as if she understood that something delicate was happening inside me, something that needed its own space to breathe. I clutched the apron ribbon nervously, waiting for her to say something that would break the spell forming around us. Instead she said, "Walk with me." Her tone was soft but steady, and somehow I followed without thinking. Moving in the uniform felt different, my steps lighter, my posture straighter, my awareness sharper. It wasn't that I suddenly felt feminine, it was more like I felt seen. Seen by myself, in a way I didn't know I'd been missing. She guided me back to the living room, where the lights were warmer and the air felt scented with quiet reassurance. "How does it feel?" she asked. I swallowed. "Strange," I said truthfully. "But not wrong." She nodded as if that was exactly the answer she expected. "The client will arrive in 2 hours," she said. "You won't have to talk much. You'll move with trays, open doors, maybe light candles. But you'll be anonymous the whole time." I hesitated. "What if they can tell that I'm not what?" she said gently. I looked down. "Not like the others." She stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "Listen. Confidence isn't about fitting a shape. It's about filling a role with honesty. And right now, you're already doing that better than you think." Her words wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Still, a part of me trembled with fear. Fear of being laughed at. Fear of being exposed. Fear of discovering a truth about myself that I might not know how to hold. I went to the mirror again. My reflection looked calmer now, almost serene. I touched my cheek, surprised at the softness in my expression. "Do you ever feel like you've been playing a character for most of your life?" I asked. Clara's eyes softened. "Everyone does. Some people just never get the moment you're having right now." A quiet knock interrupted us. It was the hairstylist, another woman from her team, carrying a small kit. "Don't panic," Clara said quickly. "She's only here to tidy your hair so it suits the theme. Nothing dramatic." I wanted to protest, but the words wouldn't form. The stylist's hands were gentle, brushing my damp hair back and clipping it neatly. She didn't stare or judge. She acted as if helping me was completely normal, which made my heart ease a little. When she finished, she stepped back with a small smile. "You have very kind eyes," she said. I felt a warmth rise in my chest that I didn't know how to answer, so I just nodded. After she left, Clara handed me a delicate lace headband that matched the dress. "Try this," she said. My fingers trembled as I placed it on. It felt like the final piece of something I didn't yet understand. The doorbell rang. A single sound, but it felt like it cracked the moment in half. Clara took a breath. "That's the client," she whispered. "Are you ready?" I wasn't. Not even close. But I nodded anyway. The first client was a middle-aged woman, elegant and soft-spoken. Her eyes landed on me immediately, but not with shock, more like curiosity. Then approval. "Perfect," she said to Clara. "He fits the aesthetic beautifully." He. The word should have grounded me. Instead, it floated strangely, like it belonged to someone I wasn't fully inside anymore. The woman handed me a tray of polished silver. "Just follow my lead," she said. "And don't worry. You're doing wonderfully." I moved through the townhouse as the guests began to arrive. They all wore refined clothes, suits, long dresses, subtle fragrances that drifted past like memories. And me. I glided among them with a kind of quiet purpose. Every nod they gave me felt like acceptance. Every smile felt like a secret I was now part of. No one questioned me. No one laughed. No one looked at me as though I didn't belong. And that, more than anything, overwhelmed me. At one point, while adjusting candles on a table, I caught my reflection in the window. The dim lights behind me, the lace headband, the soft silhouette of the dress. I didn't recognize myself. But instead of fear, I felt something gentler. A pull. A truth. A whisper that maybe this wasn't as strange as I thought. Maybe this was something that had been waiting quietly inside me for years. The night went on smoothly, and with each small task, my nerves loosened. But near midnight, as guests began leaving, something happened that shifted everything. One of the guests, a man around my age, paused at the door when he saw me collecting glasses. He didn't look amused or confused. He looked impressed. "You carry yourself well," he said simply, almost thoughtfully. And in that moment, I felt my breath hitch, because his comment wasn't about the job. It was about me. The person I was becoming, even if I didn't understand it yet. When the door finally closed, Clara approached me carefully, studying my face. "How do you feel?" she asked. I wanted to answer. I wanted to explain this mixture of fear, excitement, confusion, and strange relief swirling inside me. But all I managed was a whisper. "Different." She smiled sadly, as if she knew the road I was stepping onto. "Then tonight was more than a job for you," she said. And she was right. I just didn't know how much more it was going to become. Clara let me change out of the uniform at my own pace. Even after the guests had left and the house settled into a deep midnight stillness, I couldn't bring myself to untie the apron. It felt like undoing it would somehow undo what I had felt that night, as if the moment I stepped out of the dress, everything inside me would go quiet again. When I finally slipped back into my regular clothes, it felt almost wrong, like returning to a version of myself that suddenly didn't fit anymore. Clara noticed the shift immediately. She walked over and handed me a warm cup of tea, sitting beside me on the edge of the sofa. "There's a question on your face," she said softly. "You want to ask it, but you're scared of the answer." She wasn't wrong. I stared into the cup, watching the steam curl and fade. Why didn't it feel like acting? Her expression softened even more. "Because some roles wake up parts of you that you didn't know were sleeping." I shook my head, overwhelmed. "But I'm not, you know," she didn't let me finish. "Labels come later. Feelings come first. And tonight, you felt something real." Her calmness grounded me, but it also terrified me. What if this wasn't a one-time thing? What if there was a part of me I had never acknowledged, a part waiting behind years of pretending I didn't care about things that secretly mattered? Before I could speak again, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, raised an eyebrow, then held it toward me. It was a message from the client. "Your maid was extraordinary. If he is willing, we would love to have him again next weekend." My stomach flipped. The idea of doing it again should have scared me. Maybe even embarrassed me. But instead I felt a quiet pull. Not excitement. Not fear. Something in between. A curiosity I couldn't deny. "Will you do it?" Clara asked. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I went back to the bedroom and stared at the dress hanging on the rack. The room was dim, and the soft shadow of the uniform created a strange calmness around it. When I reached out and touched the sleeve, a memory of how I felt wearing it washed over me with surprising intensity. Grounded. Balanced. Honest. "Maybe," I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was speaking to. The next morning, I woke up expecting to feel embarrassed about everything. But I didn't. I felt thoughtful. Quiet. Like my mind was processing something fragile and important. Still, I didn't tell anyone, not a friend, not my family. It became this secret part of my world, something I guarded because I didn't even understand it enough to explain. But the days leading up to the next weekend were strange. Whenever I passed a mirror, I found myself remembering how I looked in that uniform, how my posture had changed, how the softness suited me in a way I had never allowed myself to explore. I tried to brush it off, but my thoughts kept circling back. How could one night show me a version of myself I had never seen? And why did that version feel more real than the one I lived with every day? By Friday, I called Clara. My voice shook. "If they still want me," I said, "I'll do it." She didn't respond with excitement like I expected. Instead, she said gently, "All right. But this time, I want you to come early." I arrived at the townhouse before sunset. The sky was a soft blue fading into gold, and the air smelled like warm evening breeze. Inside, she had everything set up again, the uniform pressed, the stockings folded, the little lace headband resting neatly on the table. But there was something else, too. A makeup kit. My throat tightened. "Clara," I whispered, "I can't." She held up both hands. "I'm not trying to change you. I'm trying to help you feel like the person you were becoming last weekend. Just light makeup. Enough for the theme. Nothing dramatic. I didn't know why, but her reassurance made my heartbeat slow down. I sat on the chair, hands shaking slightly as she applied a gentle touch of foundation, a hint of blush, and the softest eyeliner. Barely visible, but enough to soften the edges of my face. When she finished, she turned me toward the mirror. I exhaled sharply, because the reflection wasn't a joke or a costume. It was me. Not missing or hiding anything. Not overdone or mocked. Just softened, honest, surprisingly natural. Do you hate it? She asked. No, I whispered. I don't. The truth was bigger than that, but I couldn't say it yet. I changed into the uniform again, and this time the transformation didn't jolt me. It felt familiar, like I was stepping into a room inside myself that had always been locked. And when Clara placed the headband on me again, a quiet smile touched her lips. You look comfortable, she said. More than comfortable. I took a slow breath. I feel like I'm not pretending. The words came out before I could stop them, and they hung in the air like a confession. Clara squeezed my shoulder gently. Then maybe this job isn't the secret you think it is. I didn't fully understand what she meant, not then. But by the end of that night, I would. The second event felt different from the moment it began. Not because the guests were any louder or the tasks were any harder, but because I wasn't walking in terrified of judgment anymore. I was walking in terrified of myself, terrified of how natural this felt. The warm lights, the polished trays, the soft rustle of the dress when I moved, it all blended into a quiet rhythm that made my thoughts clearer instead of clouded. And for the first hour, everything went smoothly. Guests arrived, nodded politely, treated me with the same quiet respect as before. No one stared too long or questioned anything. If they wondered about me, they kept it to themselves. But halfway through the night, something happened that pushed everything forward faster than I was ready for. That same young man from the last event, the one who had paused at the door and said I carried myself well, showed up again. Only this time, he saw me right away. He didn't just glance and walk on. He watched me for a moment, thoughtful, curious. Not in a way that made me uncomfortable, but in a way that made my chest tighten with a confusing sense of being understood. When I walked past him with a tray, he spoke quietly. You seem even more confident this time. I froze for a second. Do I? Yes, he said gently. And, happier. Happier. The word almost broke something open inside me. I didn't reply. Couldn't. I just nodded and continued my tasks, but my mind wouldn't stop echoing what he said. Was I happier? Was this really making me feel more like myself than anything else had? Later, when I stepped into the hallway to take a breath, he found me again, this time approaching carefully, not wanting to startle me. Sorry, he said, hands raised slightly. I don't mean to bother you. I just wanted to ask something. I swallowed. Ask what? Is this your job, he said, or is this something more? My heart pounded so loudly it felt like it echoed in the hallway. For a moment, I panicked. What did he see? What did I give away? He must have noticed my fear, because his expression softened immediately. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I've just seen people who are acting, and you're not acting. You're breathing. Breathing. Not pretending. Not performing. Breathing. I didn't know how to answer him, so I didn't. He nodded gently, understanding without needing words, and stepped back. Whoever you are, he said quietly, I hope you let yourself be that person. You wear it beautifully. And then he walked away. I stood in that hallway for a long time, staring at the floor, my pulse racing with a mixture of fear and relief. Someone saw me. Not the costume. Not the uniform. Me. Not the version I always forced into existence, but the softer, quieter truth beneath it. By the time the event ended, my emotions were so tangled I didn't know how to carry them. When the last guest left, I went straight to Clara, feeling like I was holding secrets I couldn't keep inside anymore. She took one look at my face and whispered, What happened? I blinked hard. Someone asked me if this was something more. And the worst part is, I didn't know how to answer. She guided me to sit on the sofa, her voice grounding me. And what do you think? I looked down at my hands still covered by the delicate white gloves. I think, my voice cracked. I think wearing this makes me feel like someone I never allowed myself to be. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if it changes who I am. But it feels honest. Clara nodded slowly, a gentle pride in her eyes. Then maybe, she said, you're discovering a part of yourself you've been scared to meet. I exhaled shakily. But what does that make me? She shook her head. You don't need to name it tonight. You just need to acknowledge it. She helped me remove the gloves, then the apron, then the dress, each step feeling less like an ending and more like peeling back layers I'd hidden under for years. When I changed into my usual clothes, they felt unfamiliar again, almost heavier. And yet, I didn't hate that feeling. It was like I had gained a new awareness, a new lens through which I saw myself. Before I left, Clara touched my arm gently. Whatever you choose, she said, you're not alone in it. And none of this is wrong. It's just real. The walk home felt surreal. The night air was cool, the streetlights throwing long shadows across the pavement. I kept replaying everything, the young man's gentle voice, the reflection in the mirror, the ease I felt moving through that room, the surprising comfort of softness I had always brushed aside. When I reached my apartment, I sat on the floor in the dark, unable to turn on the lights. My mind was crowded with truths I didn't yet know how to speak aloud. But one thought rose above the rest, quiet and certain. This wasn't just a job anymore. It wasn't a costume or a lie or something temporary. It was a doorway. A beginning. A mirror I had finally dared to look into. And even though I didn't know where this path would lead me, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of myself. I was finally ready to meet who I could become. And that, in its own quiet way, felt like the most honest transformation of all.